My name is Andrew K. Thompson. We are talking about Leland Rice and his two photographs from the Wall Site series. We're going to allow people to load in a bit. Oh, and by the way, it's Cocktails with the Collection here at the RAFMA, the Robert and Francis Fullerton Museum at San Bernardino, Cal State, San Bernardino. I am a photographer lecturer here, as well as running the lab, and I really enjoy photo history. So this is one of the things. This actually, I don't know how long to wait. There may or may not be someone behind the camera named D. How long should I yada yada for? No, just in general. Okay. Go about an hour. Okay, no problem. Okay, good. So welcome YouTube. I'm back again. Okay. So let me tell you a fun story. I was asked by the person who may or may not be behind the camera to be a part of this Cocktails with the collection, and I was invited to go through the collection and decide which pieces to talk about. So the Royal, we found these two pictures by Leland Rice. And the strange thing to me about Leland Rice was like, what is that name? I know that name. It sounds so familiar. And I couldn't quite place it. And I looked at the pictures, and the pictures were really quite, I want to say modern, and I'm using that like in quotes because it's kind of like not contemporary, but like we'll talk about the influences, and it might, unfurl itself, that term. So I asked to see these pictures, and we got to see them in person. Hopefully we'll see them in person again. And then after looking at the pictures, like, I definitely need to find out what's up with this person, because when I did a Google search on Leland Rice, I found nothing after like 1985, 1991. It's as if he just disappears. And he does do some exhibitions of, as I butcher it, I believe it's Maholinage, Laszlo Maholinage, and Henry Holmes Smith. And I know a bunch of people don't know who I'm talking about when I say Henry Holmes Smith, because he's one of these, gosh, I'll use Leland's words. What do you call him? He was one of the lost generation of photographers. Henry Holmes Smith was in that pile. So, point is, we're not even getting to the point yet. I was curious, like, what the hell? Why is this guy such a mystery? I asked one of our friends here, Tom McGovern, and I said, what do you know about Leland Rice? He's like, that name sounds really familiar, but I don't know. So I reached out to Doug McCullough at the California Museum of Photography, because I know Doug's going to always have some folder on something. And I said, what do you know about Leland Rice? And he's like, I haven't heard that name in ages. I'm really curious to know myself. I know who might. And he reached out to Darryl Curran, who's some of you may not know who he is, but he's one of the first, you can call him the first wave of photo, like art photo teachers, art photo thinkers in this like Southern California region. For those who are unfamiliar or not really like indoctrinated, Robert Heineken at UCLA in the 60s, through the 70s, did really helped redefine how photography was thought about and made. People were doing cameraless photographs. They were doing sculptures. They were making, photographs that reference painting or light and space. And all of this is less concerned with commercial elements. We can talk about William Eggleston, who, I'm going to use Leland's term, quote unquote, broke the color line, meaning they allowed, it's weird to say this, but John Sarkowski at the MoMA did a big show of color photographs. And this was, some sort of big deal to a lot of photographers practicing at the time, quote unquote, serious photographers, because they were allowed to use color in a serious way. Typically, black and white was for serious photographers, while color was usually used for commercial. All this leads to, we'll come back to this, but with Leland, Doug reached out to Curran. Curran had Leland's contact information and gave me his email address. I emailed Leland, and Leland gave me his phone number and said, call me. And I had an over 90-minute conversation with Leland Rice on Monday, and it was fantastic. He's 81 years old. He's still sharp. He's still totally connected to the art world. It's interesting because he almost like disappears right around the time that the digital revolution comes. Before I go on, I want to say these are the wall sites. This is the Harvey wall banger. There we go, just to kind of get that over. So it was interesting. I got to talk to Leland, and it was curious. He barely turns on his cell phone. Like he was like, I just got your email a couple days later. We talked to a lot. It was interesting because he's right there in the heart of it with the Roseman Felsen Gallery. And if you're not sure who I'm talking about, these are like young Mike Kelly. We're talking about I want to say Irwin. I think it's Robert Irwin, but not the Outback guy. A lot of light and space. So these two photographs, the wall site that we're going to look at, right? We're going to look at the real ones, not just this. These are, I think, they're really curious points. Let me take a sip of this before the real piece comes in. Just proof that it's not poison. Okay, I should have gloves too. Do you have gloves? Let's get to it. Yeah. I'm not sure yet. Okay. So what's exciting to me about art and about history and about museums and collecting art. Open the what? Oh, okay, I follow. Before I open this, when I was living in New York, I got to live in New York for a couple of years, and I worked for a photo historian, gallerist named Alan Klotz. And Alan Klotz really helped nurture both my love for history, but also my obsessive digging. One of the reasons why Leland even offered to talk to me, he said, you sound like somebody that really throws yourself into what you're interested in. I was like, yeah. And for me, it was so nice because Leland just, gosh, that guy had so much information, so much to talk about. It was a shame I had to leave because I had to get to another meeting. I want to talk to him again. I plan on it. So this is back to Alan Klotz. He told me art is for sharing. right? You share. It, it's a way of like passing ideas around and like being part of a greater dialogue, right? And one of the great things, like people always look to what like the market says, like how much money so and so is making or how often so and so's work is made. But there's always like the historians, and these are the people, and I'm just dabbling, but like these are the people like what I just did here, finding the work that hasn't been talked about, finding the artist that hasn't been, I don't know, celebrated since, gosh, 1991 at best. You know what I'm saying? Like he did do some photographs of the Berlin Wall while it was still standing. And right around then, he's like, he kind of nopes out of this and just chooses to fall out. I mean, it's weird because he doesn't fall out. He's still in the uh, the art and photo game. He got his first degree was in business, so he winds up becoming like an expert on can I see the overview? Thank you. He winds up becoming an expert on a number of really well-known, really well-respected artists. Mahali Naj being one of them. He does a large exhibition. There's a publication I'm saving my money up to get, and then also on Henry Holmes Smith. And for those, I know people don't know Henry Holmes Smith because it's not like a common name, but he, for me, is a big deal because we're going to see a lot of abstract. Look, this is an abstract picture, but it's also like a legitimate picture too. It's of a something. It just, because of how the lens is flattening the perspective, it creates shapes, right? So that um, it's totally weird. You're seeing this backwards. I am. Okay, I'm seeing it backwards. Anyways, it's hard for me to connect the two. Anyways, this is a picture. If you look back at Aaron Siskin, if you look back at the abstract expressionists, you can see that this idea kind of permeates like ripples, waves, crossing, passing through generations of ideas, right? Um, Aaron Siskin was the studio mate of Franz Klein. For those who are not familiar, Franz Klein is the abstract expressionist that has like the black paint on the stark white backgrounds. And when Franz died, he died very young. Siskin started making photographs in homage to Franz Klein, and he would take pictures like this, where you have a picture of a wall, but it looks like an abstract painting. There's direct connection between photography and abstract expressionism, although it's usually in art history kind of like cordoned off. Over here is your photo, and over here is your painting, and aren't the painters like grand gods? And yeah, these guys had a machine, an apparatus to make it. It's strange how they kind of make that separation. That's why I use this word like modern, because Leland Rice told me that he was like specifically influenced by Mark Rothko and Richard Diebenkorn. Can we get like a little bit of Rothko real quick, please and thank you? Especially after looking at this picture. The other one, okay, look, this is the Mark Rothko, a painter in New York, color field, do the Google search, go to the chapel if you get the chance. When you do the Google search, find the Mark Rothko Chapel. It's somewhere in Texas. um, and sit in front of those paintings. They're huge. They're powerful. And it's, yeah, okay, your kid could do it. No, no, your kid can't. You know, there was a reason why a lot of people were influenced by Rothko, and all this is kind of in the milieu of New York, of the time that they were in, because Rothko, Siskin, de Kooning, all these people are contemporaries of one another, basically on the same 12 by 2 mile island. So it's a lot more connected. It's like, I know this is a tangent, but like, it's like hip hop and punk rock. They happened right there at the same time. Everybody intermingled, and it's not separate. It's just as the branches grow, they grow separate. So we come back to this picture. Can we also see Diebenkorn real quick? Oh, we'll talk about Summer too. That's Frederick Summer. Okay, perfect. Diebenkorn. And can we toggle between this picture and this photograph? Right? Can you see that? Like, it's like practically 1-to-1. Trying to get this as square as possible. Yeah, not different colors. This medium, the color print is fading a bit from the original. When we look at the other print, we'll compare them to the book cover. So you can see this direct correlation between, photography and abstraction. While I'm talking, can you pull up an Aaron Siskin and I don't know, look for paint peeling. Aaron Siskin is AaronSiskind. Excuse me. I'm going to cover this up for a second because I hope we saw the Diebenkorn connection. And let me make a little fun with this. Like I've got my framed corner, right? Okay. Enough fun. Let's look at this one. This one, I'll pull this up as Diego deals with now, when I was talking to Leland, I mentioned that I worked with Alan Klotz, and he knew who Alan was, and like they were buddies. The thing about, I used the term the first wave. In the 70s, when he started, really being a serious, or being taken on as a serious photographer, there were like a small handful of people that were doing this. It's not until the 80s that photography or photographs as an art form is accepted as like something to buy and to sell and to value. You've heard the stories. You could have bought an Ansel Adams for $25, $50. It's really with the me generation and the fact that like Wall Street was doing so well. It's like rocket fuel, that all that money on it. So with the time that he's graduating, with the time that he starts working professionally, like there are more opportunities than there are people. He winds up I think it's in the mid 70s, late 70s. He winds up as the photo professor at Pomona College, which makes him kind of local to us too. Excuse me. And he teaches at CalArts right when CalArts is forming, and that's major. If you guys, I mean, not to put over CalArts too much, because Lord knows they don't need it. But at the same time, there are some very radical thinkers at CalArts in the 70s. We're talking post-studio, early John Baldessari, Alan Capro. And if you guys aren't familiar with Alan Capro, you should do a Google search, Kaprow. Alan Capro. One of my favorite one of my favorite essays. I'd like to have everybody read it, and it's called, I believe it's called the Legacy of Jackson Pollock. I believe it's written in 1957, and he, in 1957, calls abstract painting cliche. Think of how many people are like still rocking abstract. Oh my God, I'm a crazy artist, right? Yeah, and now they have it in zombie formalism. It's just like you can't kill it. People love this stuff. Gosh, I'm sorry if this is a diss, but like we don't need to hear about Rorschach tests anymore. We all get it. You know what I'm saying? The viewer gets to make up their own interpretation. We get it. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why I find this photo connection, this Siskin. Now, Leland Rice definitely mentions Siskin as a influence, and it's hard not to. We're talking. Okay, let's go back. Look, this guy again, studio mate to Franz Klein. There's a reason why. You know what I'm saying? It's like I've have some friends that I've been studio mates with, and we wind up like, you end up growing like one another. And artists are artists. We're just like sharing ideas. We're sharing thoughts. Like these things, like this print, like those prints, a sculpture, a painting, whatever it is. That's like the residue of the life that was lived, right? Like it's the like the stand-in for the conversation. It becomes its own shorthand, right? So like when I saw this picture, can we just look at this one real quick? Up screen. We'll come back to Siskin. Look at this one real quick. I was like, oh yeah, Siskin, abstract thing. Like this is like, to me, who's like, excuse me for being like fully indoctrinated into this stuff because, I Klotz had a library like this. It's bigger than the frame of my existence, and he would I'd be like, tell me more, dude, here's some books. And if anybody who knows me or has been in my class, you'll see I got a gang of books. It's stupid. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know what to do with them because I just love digging through all this stuff. So to me, it's like shorthand. Okay, I see it. I see Siskin. I see all the abstract expressionist conversation that we've led up to this. I see, I kind of have my little smirk about Capro and the cliche of the abstraction. And trust me, I do my own abstract work too. So like, come on, we just do, artists get to be contradictory. So thank you for your understanding. And the curious thing though, the real curious thing about Leland Rice, and this, he calls this one his moonrise. And of course, when he calls it the moonrise, he's riffing off Moonrise of Hernandez of like Ansel Adams. Of course, you all know that one. If you don't know, you got to know because it's like one of the most well-known photographs of Ansel Adams. Right? Feel free to pick that up if you can get it, Diego. So this print. This whole conversation, from finding it on the computer, going through the database, to actually getting to see it, to like tracking this dude down in real life and actually like having a phone call, that's what's exciting to me about art. That's why I make art. This is why I love being a part of art, because if you dig into it, like all of history isn't dusty and old. History is alive. You just kind of have to like dig into it, and photo history, art history, it's a living, breathing thing, and the stories are there to be told. You just need to ask the right people, you know. Gosh, Leland told me stories about Frederick Summer, about Ellsworth Kelly. And if you're not familiar with Ellsworth Kelly, he's another one of these like major abstract expressionists. But he's like a color field guy, like nothing, like you can't see his paintbrush. It's just like as if it's soaked in. And I know you didn't ask, but Morris Louis is one of my favorite abstract painters. Like, forget about it, along with Sam Francis. But again, you didn't ask. Um, Ellsworth Kelly apparently was a big photographer, really big into photography, but his gallery wouldn't allow him to publish those. So there have since been books of Ellsworth Kelly's photographs, and you would see that they're all look like it was made by the same artist. Surprise, you know what I'm saying? Like once you have your own kind of aesthetic, your vision. This is what I try to talk to students about is, when you're, I'm going to talk in metaphor. When you're a guitar player or a saxophone player, you learn your favorite riffs or solos of your favorite musicians, and you have to work through those inspirations, right? You have to work through those influences, and eventually, if you put in enough time, if you put in enough research, if you put in enough reps, you develop your own voice because you know what you don't know. Pardon me, not you know what you don't like, and you know what you do like, and those things have now shaped you into like your flow, right? Like into your voice, your vision, whatever it is that you want to talk about, or word that you want to use to stand in for this kind of coasting on inspiration, the creative magic, right? To be able to share that, you know what I mean? Like when I spoke with Leland on Monday, we are separated by 40 years and a couple thousand miles. He's in, he's no longer in Southern California. But through the sharing of similar ideas and similar values in art and like sharing similar understanding. So like I can say Aaron Siskin, he said, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? And know exactly where I'm going with it. I don't need to expand because he knows and I know that Siskin really kind of sets this tone, right? And to be even more specific, if you fall back a little bit further, you can talk about Walker Evans, which is perfect. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Self, for bringing this up, because Walker Evans is one of my personal favorite photographers. And if you choose to find the Walker Evans churches, you're going to see what I like to believe, what I refer to as like the international art photography look, right? It's straight on, it's kind of dead set, it's kind of straightforward, no fancy tricks, a lot like what Leland Rice is doing right here, right? The event of the color, the event of the space, this is somebody, let's see, he was renting a studio with a painter named Fred Spratt. Here's Walker Evans. This straight on photograph. Now, another person to look up is William Christenberry. It sounds just like it spells just like it sounds, Berry. Excuse me, William Christenberry. Because when Leland was talking to me about the quote unquote breaking the color line, the color photography finally taken seriously, all the praise wound up, continues to wind up on William Eggleston. And William Eggleston is a fancy, fantastic, fabulous photographer. I can't say enough alliterations. I got to meet him when I was like a wee baby child at about 25-ish. From a long story, it's like a friend of a friend of a friend said, hey, I know that guy. And he called him up, and he has a bit of a drinking problem. So he said, "Yo, bring over a fifth of vodka and you can come over." We did it. We didn't have Harvey Wallbangers, but I got to hang out with William Eggleston and see all the colors. Okay. Now, do we have Christenberry yet? I'm posing for the camera. William Christenberry, Leland Rice says, is another one of those lost generation of photographers. You're going to see what almost looks like a photographic child of Walker Evans in color, and also churches in the South, right? It's just like another couple decades later, say if Evans is working in the 40s, Christenberry's working in the 70s. And if we can get a Christenberry, you'll be able to kind of see, I hope you'll be able to see what I'm talking about, like this blending of the Siskin and the Evans, of straightforward, almost deadpan, where you crop out the world to the point that is not recognizable, but it's still of a something. It's still something. It's not completely abstract. Henry Holmes Smith, Hugo is completely abstract, which is probably one of the reasons why a lot of people don't know him, right? Because there's something about photography. People expect to see a something, to expect to, oh, that looks like my dog, that looks like the sunset, that looks like a plant, a person, a roof. Who knows? Like photography, photography is so complicated. I'm not going to go that deep into it. But one of the things about it is that people expect to see something. They want to, I like to call it like Velcro. They want to be able to see, put their understanding and hook it to something. They can't like look at paint. For instance, when you look at like a really thick de Kooning, it's like, oh, look at all that paint. It's just so layered and expressive and yada yada. Like the photograph, because it's separated through this mechanism, this apparatus, the machine of the camera and the lens, the mechanical eye. It replaced people's expectations of reality, and it kind of like pushed it further, right? And that's a play that, like, I know a number of photographers, I know I have a problem with it sometimes, and other photographers that do like completely non-representational art, they have a problem. Like, look, here's William Christenberry. Tell me that doesn't look like that Walker Evans church. What's the difference? It's like, it looks like a place. I'm not quite sure what the place. Taters? Taylors. Not taters. We're having taters tonight for breakfast, for dinner, or for whatever. But it's in color, right? And otherwise, it's basically the same thing. And if you look at, a number of contemporary photographers, my first one goes to Peter Hugo, which is kind of odd because he's not so much of photographing people. I'm photographing buildings. He photographs people, but it is that kind of straight-on, flattened photograph, that typically is just printed really big, and there you have it. You have a big picture, and bigger is always bigger. Bigger isn't always better. These William Christenberry prints are really tiny. If you ever see them in person, they're like itty bitty, and that's what's really nice about it. So again, Leland, we haven't looked at Henry Holmes Smith yet. We put our lost generation together a bit, because Henry Holmes Smith, so you've heard of the Bauhaus, right? Like, tell me, you can't be interested in art not have heard of like Bauhaus school. And when they had the split, they moved to America, they emigrated, and Mahaly Naj creates the new Bauhaus. What do they call it? They call it now like the something Arts Institute of Design or something. It's in Chicago. It still runs. It's still like a thing to go to. Um, but Mahaly Naj pulls this guy out. You know, he says, Henry Holmes Smith, I want you to be one of the teachers. He pulls in um, Aaron Siskin to be one of the instructors. Aaron Siskin is like the technical guy. He's the guy that like, you know, whereas Holmes Smith is like a crazy guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are actually interestingly made. He used like this corn oil, and he makes like a negative, which is then printed in the colored dye supplements. But back to what I was saying about photography and people's expectations of photography, like needing a something to hold on to. Like if we look at Leland's Moonrise, just get a brief overhead. Like we're gonna see like you've got light bulbs, should be a light bulb, wood, paint. You know, I can identify these things. There's like, I can somehow like create an index of understanding, and it's still abstract and flat, but I can like put that experience of looking at like pattern and shape in a poetic way, but I can hold on to reality like, okay, it's okay. I'm not off into the wilderness. Can we go back to Henry Holmes Smith? You know, here you're like, you're away from the buoy, you know, and you're outside of like the safe zone of the beach. Like you're out in like, who knows what we're looking at. Of course, you know, the tired expression of the Rorschach test, you know, yada, yada. Okay, you know, you're locked in here with me. You know, but Holmes Smith, along with being one of what Leland Rice refers to as a lost generation of photographers, he's a major educator and he writes a lot. So you get a lot of great scholarship, and he's one of the founding members of the Society of Photographic Education. And this is where it gets personal. He is the instructor and has like about an 8-year relationship with an artist named Betty Hahn, H-A-H-N, Betty, H-A-N, I can't even spell it, H-A-H-N, Betty Hahn. If you look that up, that'd be super cool too. Betty Hahn's really close to my heart because she did, she's most, I don't know if she's best known, but she tends to get a lot of the credit for being like the first to like sew or stitch her photographs. And as an artist, that's something that I do. And, you know, I can't say that it was because Betty Hahn was the first person that I started stitching, but when I saw, oh my God, you got to recognize, you know what I mean? And once I was introduced to Betty Hahn, I did research, got books, you know, read her history, read her bio, looked at, you know, who she worked with, who she knows, you know, like, because again, that's the type of geek I am, you know, like I'm an art fiend, I'm an art geek, you know, and photos my thing, you know, like, and people, Diego in the behind the camera here knows this, like, you catch me on the subway, you catch me in the backyard, I'll talk like, you know what I'm saying, I won't stop talking, this is what I do, I love this stuff. I'm a real geek for this, and that's why, yo man, to be able to like, when I connected with Leland Rice through Doug McCullough, I was like, my life can't get better. You know what I mean? Like, I was just so thankful, so like, gosh, I can't believe it. You know, like, one day you have heroes, the next day you have peers. You know, and look, Leland Rice, this is my first time being introduced to him. But he just filled in so much information that was like missing in my life, and that's super exciting to me. Here's another one that's even crazy. We haven't seen Barbara Hahn yet, but he was also married to Barbara Caston. That blew my mind. Like he, I didn't know that. It didn't come up. I didn't, or at least I didn't see it in the Google searches. Excuse me. He tells me this like an hour into the conversation. I was like, wait, what? You and Barbara Caston were married? Like, like the whole world. It's like, it's funny being such an art geek. When you read the books and the history of art and the history of painting, sculpture, photography, all this stuff, they become so mythic and heroicized figures. And it's funny, they're really just like average folks. Betty Hahn, everybody. Betty Hahn, friends with Henry Holmes Smith, friends with Leland Rice, friends with Daryl Curran, friends with Doug McCullough, friends with Andrew Thompson. Where's Kevin Bacon? You know what I mean? Like, it's the world's so small. It's wonderful. Gosh, I love Betty Hahn's work. 10 more minutes. Okay. Can we just look at Barbara Caston, just to wrap this up? While I'm talking about my favorite photographers, Betty Hahn is one of them. B. Nettles. We're not going to see her, but type this in, Nettles. This is for you in the audience. Neatles. B-E-A. B. Nettles. When I was a young scrub in undergrad in the mid-1990s, I graduated in 97. B. Nettles' Breaking the Rules, I found in the library. And breaking the rules ever since. So those are some of my favorites. It's crazy to me, like, how, in a way, accessible people are. You just really need to reach out. So I would encourage you, I'm going to kind of wrap this up now. I'm going to encourage you to find artists other than on Instagram. I'm going to ask you to do more than Wikipedia searches. I'm going to ask you to go to the library and blow off those dusty books, because there's a bunch of information that hasn't made it to the internet. You're not going to find it. You're not going to hear about Betty Hahn on TikTok, because everyone's going to show you their cool sunset presets. I usually yawn at that. I get excited about this. These are photographers that I believe have been serious about their work and dedicated themselves to a practice that, broke conventions. And in Leland's case, had the imagine just saying like, peace out everybody, and just kind of like fade into the background. He had exhibitions at the Hirshhorn Museum. You know what I'm saying? I found a PDF online. It's called Mirrors and Windows, Photography Since the 1960s by John Sarkowski. You guys might not know who I'm talking about, but Sarkowski was, and this is one of the problems with curators and gatekeeping, but Sarkowski was one of like the gatekeepers. Like he's the guy, like you get blessed by Sarkowski, you're made. This was in the New York Museum of Modern Art, which was one of the earlier museums to start having a serious collection. That's why the William Eggleston show was so huge. Even Leland Rice's pictures, his early pictures, were in black and white. So this is, again, another great example of why, gosh, I just love art, because this object this piece of paper, photographic, you know, light sensitive silver crystals with dye, slightly fading. Can we see the cover of his Hirshhorn book? It's so stupid. I bought the book, I read it, and then I forgot to bring it for today's cast. I'm such a dunce. But look at the color difference between this and this current print. You know, while I still love this print, and I believe this is a 20 by 24, which is one of his smaller prints. He said that the average, pardon me, a medium print was 20 by 24. The normal size was 30 by 40. So that's a little bit about Leland Rice and my crazy twisted tale of tracking him down after being invited to talk about artwork from the Rathma collection. And I will take any questions. I will talk about anything you wish.
I only have one question for you, and it is just because I wanted to know how do these artists inspire your photography that you do yourself?
Oh my gosh. In a way, it's like what I've been doing recently won't look anything like this. Like, you know, I've been melting cameras. People are still like, what the hell are you doing? I love it. I mean, I like the confusion. And some people, you know, when Daryl Curran saw it, and he was like, what? And I was like, awesome. You know, I got like one of the first wave guys to be like, okay, you know, rocking, you know. So my work, I don't think directly looks like this, but I think that, gosh, I hope that it's clear how much my love for this is, you know, and just like, gosh, to me this is like swimming. I just love it. I love looking at pictures. I love like finding all the connections and how it all kind of like interweaves. And for me, when I make my work, you know, sometimes, um, you know, like let's say when I'm sewing and I go, oh, but Betty Hahn did it. Well, you know what? Betty Hahn didn't do it like I did it. I'm going to keep going. And then I'm going to look at Betty Hahn's work and I'm going to look at, you know, whomever else is sewing. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to do my thing. And I'm going to see like, look, it's not that this person's better because they're different. No, what it means is that we're all doing something. Because nobody, like my voice, totally different than everybody else's. Even amongst people that sew on their photographs. So what if there's like 15 of us? More the merrier, you know what I'm saying? Now we're in a concert. You know, the cameras, the melting cameras, I'm particularly proud of because it's like one of those things that for me, it drilled past my influences into something like truly weird. You know what I'm saying? Like truly my own. And yeah, and then somebody comes up to me and introduced me to an artist named Bill J. And I know none of you have heard of Bill J. I never heard of Bill J. I was like, who? And Bill J is like this well-known author, well-known photographer, you know, teacher in Arizona. And he would melt plastic cameras with a torch. My man. You know, like imagine Franz Klein, like when he's painting like with his blowtorch. So I was like, okay, that's cool, but it's totally not what I'm doing because it's not just the melting of cameras. You know, I'm playing with different, like, you know, I'm afraid to use the word sustainable because I'm not like that. Like, I'm not gonna go out and like tie myself to a tree in protest, but at the same time, I think it's cool that if I mix up rose petals and I grind them all up and I mix that with vitamin C and washing soda, I can make a really cool looking camera that's going to melt over time. You know, it takes not 10 hours, but like 4 or 5 hours. And it's this performance that kind of just happens whether you watch it or not. It leaves a mark, it leaves the print. And I just learned that I can use that chemistry to develop photo paper, which I've had. You know, I've done it and I've proven the concept by like going into the darkroom, developing a picture with asparagus, you know, with ground up asparagus or banana and apple juice. You know, like each developer, each plant will yield faster times. Like the rose petals took 20 minutes to develop. The asparagus will develop in about 5 minutes. You know, so I love it. You know, so so yeah. Here's some of my earlier ones. This one's actually okay. Thank you. This is the first generation of the melting cameras. The product, art is not a product. Art is a product. Um, excuse me. This piece, I called it Monumental 1 through 78. I made 78 ice cameras of the same camera. I'm still using those molds, by the way. And they're all with coffee, vitamin C, and washing soda. That's a thing called cathinol, which is it's a broader umbrella. People develop film with beets and beer and wine, and you know, and I've been kind of adding to asparagus and broccoli and whatever. Point being, this was at the California Museum of Photography. This was a show that was with Dale Curran called Mirror Mirror. It was curated by Doug McCall. It also had Jonah Yip and Judy. Whoa, Zellen? Is it Judy? Oh no! Oh, please don't hold me against it. I messed up your name. Karchi Perlman and I think that's it, Daryl Curran. But you know, and Daryl Curran had turned the California Museum of Photography into like a camera obscura, and made pictures with the building. And you know, we did the melt. Everything. What's interesting to me, you guys might not know it, and you definitely don't see it. Everything's photographic. You know, this camera is melting over an 11 by 14 sheet of Ilford RC. No, it's not RC. Fiber-based black and white paper with a 16 by 20 base, and behind it is like a gray frame like this, painted in the dimensions of a 35 millimeter frame with a zone 6 because I wanted it a little bit darker than zone 5. And you know, everything's like so deeply photographic, and then people are like, so what's it have to do with photography? Where's the photograph? So what are you gonna do? You can't please everybody. You can't make art that everyone's gonna understand. And there you go. Are there any other questions? Thumbs up. Okay. I guess thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming to Cocktails with the Collection at the RAFMA at California State University, San Bernardino. This is Andrew K. Thompson, and I am signing off.